Today on the bar, we are joined by Sboniso Kheswa, an experienced attorney and senior legal and risk leader whose career spans corporate law, governance, financial services, and regulatory strategy. In this conversation, we unpack his journey from studying law and completing articles to navigating board exams, evolving through various roles, and now driving legal strategy within the financial sector. This is a chance to learn from his experiences, his insights, and the lessons that shaped his path. Spony, welcome to In Conversation.
Hi, Tepiso. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. So I want us to start at the beginning. What sparked your interest in law and what did studying at UKZ teach you about the kind of lawyer you wanted?
Yeah. So I think for me, when you're young, you have very limited access to information, and you kind of base the decision on what you are going to study based on the kind of either personality you have or the influences around you. So when I was in primary school all through high school, I was very involved in debating and poetry writing and reciting and things like that. And those activities taught me a lot about how to articulate myself and just basically commanding presence when you're in the stage. So naturally, it became a no-brainer after matric that one of the careers that I considered getting into was studying law. The other one, just for interest sake, was international relations. So I saw myself, being involved in the field of diplomacy and those kinds of things. But as luck would have it, the University of KwaZulu-Natal accepted me for a Bachelor of Laws degree at the Pietermaritzburg Law School, and that's essentially how the journey started.
That's nice. So, looking back, do you think your younger self could have predicted the path you're on now?
Definitely not. I don't think they would have predicted it. I wouldn't have even predicted it. I made a lot of, changes and pivots along the journey from what I initially thought I was going to be. And I don't think my younger self would have predicted being here now. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. It's just the beauty about how life evolves and how important it is for us to always consider pivoting at every opportunity that you get and realigning yourself when circumstances change, when your interests change, when the world around you changes. It's also important for you to adapt. And that's one of the skills that has become critical in this journey of mine, to being able to be adaptable and to be able to change when circumstances require you to change.
So your academic journey includes a postgraduate certificate in risk, compliance, and governance. What motivated you to expand your studies in that direction?
Yeah. So it became very clear to me as soon as I finished my articles that perhaps a career in practice wasn't the one for me. And I then decided to move into in-house legal counsel. And my journey started in the financial services sector, in particular banking, and that is an extremely and highly regulated environment that we work in. It became important then for me to upskill myself in terms of the regulatory universe and the compliance principles that are applicable to the industry within which I am. And that obviously, for me, the consideration there was that I needed to become more than just a lawyer, because when you're an in-house counsel, it becomes more than just knowing the law. It's really a relationship of balancing legal principles, interpreting legal principles in a way that your business partners are able to digest it and make informed business decisions, because they need that legal interpretation in order for them to make decisions and make judgments as far as the business is concerned. So it becomes important, therefore, as a legal counsel who is in-house, in particular in the banking services, that you are able to receive the legal and regulatory information, but also translate it in a way that your stakeholders that you look after are able to understand it and use it to make informed decisions to push the business forward.
So, would you say that your postgraduate degree helped you change the way you approach legal problems?
Definitely. Definitely. When you are in your undergraduate studies, a lot of it is theoretical, right? A lot of it is, conceptual. It's theories that you learn about and you interpret them in class and you run all of these scenarios, but it's mostly theoretical. And then when you get into practice during your articles, you're also now thrust into this environment where you now have to kind of take the theory that you learned in undergrad and apply it in real life scenarios. And most of the time you find that it either doesn't apply or there's completely different rules that you may have not been exposed to in practice. So it requires a lot of adaptation. Now, fast forward to completing your articles and actually practicing as an attorney, whether in-house or in practice, it then becomes even more important that you further distill that knowledge that you've attained in your undergrad and in your practical articles experience into now actionable business items, right? So therefore, engaging in postgraduate qualifications or postgraduate degrees or diplomas like the one that I did then further elaborated how these concepts apply and play out. And now I could easily obviously understand it because now I had working scenarios about practical applications in my day-to-day job.
Between your undergrad and doing your articles, which of the two would you say was the most difficult to do?
I think both of them had their challenges for different reasons because in undergrad, you're literally a blank slate. You're coming in from high school. You really have no idea what this degree is all about. And you have to navigate all of these other, modules as well, because it's not just a singular modules. There's a variety of modules that you have to go through and complete. And obviously that presented its challenges for its reasons at the time. Similarly so, postgraduate studies also present a different sets of challenges as well because now you have to balance studying and working at the same time, so the study demands have to be balanced with your day-to-day demands, and it really then becomes a game of managing your time properly and being disciplined with how you use your time.
So, your articles exposed you to litigation, commercial law, labor law, and deceased estates. How did rotating through such diverse areas shape your legal identity?
Yeah, it exposed me to what real life practice looks like, right? Because again, when you start your articles, you have very little knowledge about, well, at least I did, about the kind of lawyer I wanted to be or the kind of attorney that I wanted to be. So then it became important for me to sort of get a glimpse into how these different areas of law or these practices are run. But also not only from that perspective, it also just helped develop me in a professional setting in terms of relationship building and stakeholder engagement as well. So what becomes important as you grow in your professional journey is that it becomes more than just the hard skills of knowing the technical content of the work that you do. It also becomes equally important that you manage the relationships that you find yourself in a very professional way. And working with different people within the firm gave me access to that because, you may be familiar with people because you bump into them in corridors. It's a different context when you work with them and you have deliverables and you learn from these people in terms of how they do the work because they're the subject matter experts and you're the one that is learning from them. So it teaches you a lot about how to, be professional, how to engage people, and how to just understand personalities as well, because the one director is not going to be the same as the other director, and their requirements and kind of expectations are not going to be the same in terms of how they wanted their work to be presented and done. And you learn different skills from these different people that you get to rotate in, on top of learning about the different areas of law and how each of those areas of law apply to real life scenarios. So it was very fruitful from that perspective. And I guess that is where I guess the commercial bug bit me because as a commercial lawyer, that is where I would say my love for commercial law started because as you said, I got exposed to various areas of law as you've mentioned, but commercial law is really where I guess I got attracted to and wanted to pursue it further, which aligned very well with the kind of path that I'm in today.
So, which department would you say challenged you the most and why?
Yeah, I would say it was probably the conveyancing department. So conveyancers, for those who don't know, are property experts in the legal sense. So they handle the property, transfers, property registrations, drafting of conveyancing documents and things like that. So that was the challenge for me primarily because it's a very technical area, which is why it becomes important that you study even further beyond your normal admission exams in order for you to be qualified as a conveyancer. There's further additional examinations that you have to take and pass in order for you to be qualified as a conveyancer. So at article level, you would understand then that those concepts often evaded me as a junior practitioner, and I found that it demanded a lot from me at the time, and luckily it was only for a brief period because I don't think I would have perhaps survived had I stayed longer. But yeah, the convincing I would say was the most challenging, and primarily because not because it was either the people that I were working with or whatever, it was simply because just the concepts of the practical application of these principles were highly complex for my brain at the time.
So, you did your undergrad, then you did your articles, then you had to do your board exams. So, how was your journey
Yeah.
preparing for the board exams? Were they difficult? Did you do it at one go?
Yeah. So I guess we were very fortunate because we got a lot of training within the firm that I worked at in terms of preparing us for our board exams. We got a lot of assistance from the associates and the senior associates that had gone through this journey as well in terms of just imparting information and sharing like past exam papers and things like that. So in addition to that, there are also classes that you attend through the Practical Legal Training Institute. I think it's LEAD, it's called, if it hasn't changed its name now. So I believe that I was very well prepared when I took my board exams. I didn't write all four of them at the same time. I wrote my first two in my first year of articles, and then I wrote the last two in the second year of articles. And fortunately, I was able to pass them at first try and needing no rewrite or anything like that. And it's primarily because I believe that I was very well prepared in terms of, as I said, the information that had been imparted and that the preparation that went into it with leading up to writing the board exams. It also helped that we were given study leave, so we were able to focus primarily on making sure that we are sufficiently prepared for the exams. So we didn't have to worry about balancing both, as other industry peers would testify that that's the situation that they faced in the places that they worked. So yeah, I was able to write them all and was able to get them right as well at first try.
Amongst the four, did any one of them give you a challenge when preparing?
I think my answer is going to be the same as a lot of people in my industry. It was there was a module called accounting or bookkeeping rather, because the idea around practical legal training is to equip you with skills that you would need should you wish to start your own practice. So it goes from, the actual law to actually the business of running a practice. And one of the modules there was obviously bookkeeping because attorneys are entrusted with trust monies, so monies belonging to clients that they hold in trust. So then it becomes important that you understand the fundamentals of bookkeeping and how you record and report to those kinds of finances. And as a person who doesn't have a financial background or an accounting background, that was particularly challenging to me. But luckily, we had, again, as I said, we had additional classes and lectures and just source materials that we could refer to in order for us to equip ourselves in that. And yeah, although it was challenging, I was able to still pass the first time around.
So board exams, it's like you're going back to school most. You have to take extra
Basically, ba-
lessons,
basically, yeah, basically.
so you can't do it by yourself.
No, you definitely need help. There's power in numbers. So you need to do it with a group of people. And luckily there are institutes that offer classes and that's why at least it alleviates the pain a little bit or the difficulty of going through this journey on your own. So I would definitely recommend that people consider those classes. There are ones that are offered through, like the official channels like Lead, as I said, and there are other independent, practitioners as well that provide extra lessons to candidates. And I would recommend that you take them because, as you said, it's like going to school. And if you haven't been to school in a very long time, it can be a difficult adjustment to make, but an important one if you want to get admitted as an attorney.
So becoming admitted attorney is a major milestone. How did your early experiences in practice differ from what you expected?
Yeah. I didn't really have expectations because I really didn't know what I was getting myself into. And generally speaking, I try not to have expectations because that way I avoid getting disappointed. So I often take things as they come. I prepare as sufficiently as I can, but I prefer not to have expectations because, as I said, limits the possibility of you getting disappointed. So I didn't know what I was expecting when I got into this. I took the journey as and when it came and took the challenges and obstacles it presented as it came. And the high moments as well, I celebrated them as they came. Coming into it, I had no expectations at all, but it's been a very fulfilling journey, a very exciting journey, and hopefully a very long journey ahead as well to go.
So you also got a chance to work for firm and also now you're working in corporate. Which of the two would you say you enjoy the most, working in the most?
Yeah. Listen, experiences differ for different people, but I've found it much more fulfilling to be in-house counsel and to be able to, practice the law as it would be from my capacity as an internal legal counsel. And that is because, again, as I said, this role goes beyond being just a lawyer, right? It entails you becoming more of a business partner and a risk strategist, because a lot of the work that we do is literally around managing legal risk. And we manage legal risk by working together with business stakeholders, credit stakeholders, and relationship managers as well, because all of us need to come together to find solutions that work for the clients that we serve. And I find that it's more fulfilling for me to kind of marry these different concepts of business and law and regulation and compliance into one usable, actionable solutions for our customers.
So if a 5-year-old were to come to you and ask you what do you do for a living, what would you say? How would you explain your job to a 5-year-old?
It'll be a very difficult concept to explain to a 5-year-old. But I guess I would say is I put up the fence so that you as a 5-year-old don't run out into the streets and get run over by a car. Right? That's the most simplistic explanation I can think of right now. As a legal risk practitioner, my role is to make sure that I put frameworks in place to say these are the bounds within which we operate. And in order for us not to suffer any reputational, financial, or any other risk, we need to play within these bounds. And if we want to go and play outside in the streets, for example, then we agree to say that these are the parameters within which we can play in the streets. Then you put in place additional safeguards and additional frameworks to say, even though you are playing in the streets where it would ordinarily be dangerous, we are putting these measures in place to make sure that while you are in the streets and playing in the streets, no car comes and runs you over.
Your career spans private practice, corporate banking, recoveries, risk, and now high-level regulatory and governance work. What guided your transition across these environments?
Yeah, I would say it's been the evolution of my journey, right? And the journey is constantly evolving, and that's why I spoke about earlier about the importance of being adaptable, because circumstances change all the time. Interests come and go, interests change and evolve, employers may come and go, and what remains important for me is that I maintain my expertise and align myself into places and opportunities where I can provide the most value. I mentioned earlier that the financial services is a highly regulated environment. So that is why I've made sure that throughout my journey I get exposure in all of these different areas so that it can make me a well-rounded legal risk practitioner. Because as I said, there are multiple factors and stakeholders that I have to interact with on a daily basis to come to a final solution on any issue that we're dealing with or any decision that needs to be made. There are various considerations that have to be taken into account. So it became important for me that throughout my journey, I position myself as a person who has an understanding of, I might not be a compliance expert, but I will have a working understanding of what compliance principles are applicable into the space within which I'm operating. Similarly so with regulation, similarly so with risk. It's important for me beyond the law to understand how I can take those legal principles that I obviously know as a legal practitioner, but apply them in the context within which I'm operating and make sure that I transform them into actionable and usable items so that my stakeholders can get value.
Earlier on, you mentioned that you're an in-house lawyer. Does it mean that you guys no longer go to court maybe to represent the company, or you're still allowed to go to court?
Yeah. So no. So I don't, as part of my day job, I do not appear in court. Um, so appearance in court requires rights of appearance, and that is for practitioners or colleagues or industry peers that actually appear in court and run trials. So if ever I come across a matter that becomes litigious or that requires legal representation, we would then outsource those services to colleagues that are actually in practice that would then run those appearances, on our behalf. For myself, as on a daily basis, appearing in court is not part of what I do.
Oh, okay. I understand. You've handled
Yeah.
everything from distress debt to dispute resolution to commercial agreements and governance advisor. Which role pushed your thinking the most?
Yeah. I would say I found the most kind of intellectual stimulation when we're dealing with commercial deals and the structuring of commercial deals. And, without getting extremely technical, but, every transaction is different and it is based on what that specific client's requirements are. And a lot of the time it involves lots of discussions internally and with external legal counsel, if the case as the case may be, of how the deal should be structured in a way that makes sense for the business but also makes sense from the client's perspective. And that involves a lot of considerations, from the drafting of legal agreements to the extension of credit facilities and how much money is exchanged for how long, and who bears the risk of that money if that money is not paid, and what security will be required for that deal to go through. So it's a lot of technical aspects that come to play, but it's also a lot of negotiation around the table, because a commercial deal structuring is not a matter of one person sending an email to another or calling another to say, I want this, and it be finalized like that. It's a lot of process that is involved, and it's a lot of discussions and negotiation and agreement drafting and agreement, exchanging between parties. And for me, those are some of the most, challenging, exciting, but also challenging deals that I've had a chance or an opportunity to work in, because it's not only about the law, it's also about making sure that you understand the numbers, that the numbers make sense for the deal overall. So those are the numbers from a client's perspective, that the client is getting the value that they're looking for in this deal, but similarly so that the business that is lending this money to this client is also making a return on that investment that they're making to that client. So it's those kinds of transactions that I find are most stimulating. But I mean, every single day in the work that I do is different, and it presents exciting opportunities for different reasons.
I also saw that you're part of the Doctors Without Borders Southern Africa. Is it an NGO thing? And also, what I'm trying to understand is what type of work do you do there?
Yeah. Yes. So it is a non-governmental organization. It's a humanitarian non-governmental organization called Doctors Without Borders. It's an international organization. I just am involved in the Southern African chapter of it. So I volunteer there as a board secretary, and primarily my responsibilities there are board governance and board secretarial work. And what that essentially means is that I look after because NGOs are also highly regulated. So I make sure that as far as South African law is concerned, the organization it meets all the requirements of what compliance looks like from a Southern African perspective. And I sit at these board meetings and make sure that issues of corporate governance or standards of corporate governance are observed at all times, and make sure that, from a compliance and regulatory perspective, we do not find ourselves wanting, should an audit be done, or any kind of scrutiny be cast upon the organization. So it's one of my deepest passions, just because of the work that MSF does. And I was very fortunate to get an opportunity to kind of, lend my skills to that organization, but also learn in terms of the kind of work they do, because they really do amazing work. And I'm really grateful and honored to be a part of it.
So as legal counsel in the commercial chief's risk office, you navigate complex transactions, regulatory frameworks, cross-border laws, and high-risk agreements. What does a day in your world really look like?
Yeah, as I said, no day is the same ever. So a typical day would involve attending credit committee meetings where we are discussing how to structure deals from a credit perspective. There, I lend my advice or guidance from a legal perspective in terms of considering security arrangements around a specific deal, making sure that the legal agreements that underpin these facilities are drafted in a way that protects the bank from legal risk. It involves, just day-to-day answering of queries, because again, we work in such a fast-paced environment that there's always something on the go, there's always something on the move. So I also provide guidance from that perspective in terms of just providing the strategic direction of where the business is supposed to go. Also, within my own team, there's various engagement that we make from an upskilling perspective, and also just debating on what the current topics are going around in the industry, and what learnings we can take from cases like that. I also sit in forums from a market conduct perspective, where there with peers internally, we discuss any changes and developments as far as market conduct is concerned. Because as I said, financial services and banking in particular is highly regulated. So there's always considerations to be had from what the behavior or the expected standards are in the market. And we reflect on those on a regular basis to just make sure that as an organization we still uphold those standards, and we don't find ourselves, at the bad side of the regulators. It's never really the same. So those are just some of the things that can land on my desk on a daily basis, and those are some of the things that would be on my diary in terms of engagement and meetings.
Okay. So, what's one misconception people have about the work that you about?
People hear that I'm a lawyer and they think that I can solve every problem. I really cannot. So the problems that I can solve are particularly in the kind of work that I do on a daily basis. And I can't help with the a bail application, for example. There are colleagues that are extremely trained and experts in that area that you would need to consult. So the misconception is that lawyers are, are the fixers of everything. We can be in certain instances, but our skills are very focused and specialized in the things that we do. So it's always important then, for if you're requiring legal services or legal advice, that you consult the right lawyer for the right issue that you have.
So, a person what with a medical issue can come to you and say, "Hey, I have an issue." Eh?
No, unfortunately not. That would require independent legal advice. There are people that have been trained for a number of years that deal with those kinds of issues on a daily basis. So they absolutely would be the best placed to give you proper advice considering your circumstances as well.
So, financial service financial services law is constantly evolving. Regulation, compliance, cross-border requirements, and risk frameworks. What major shifts are you seeing in the industry right now?
Yeah, no, you're right. It's constantly evolving. Currently, what I'm seeing or what we're seeing is the evolution of what financial services looks like in the world, with the introductions of new technologies. In South Africa, we're also seeing an evolution from what banking services look like, right? So we are moving away from the traditional banking services as we know it to a much more technology driven era of banking or financial services. So the introduction of new technologies and the introduction of new players in the industry presents a lot of evolution in the industry in terms of what the concept of banking we understand it to be. There's also changes in particular with regards to payments, what payments looks like in South Africa, what digital payments in particular are going to look like. Our Reserve Bank has adopted a forward-looking perspective in terms of what payment looks like in South Africa, and in the introduction of new players as well, such as the likes of the fintechs, provides a lot of opportunity for us as end users to be able to transact quicker, safer, and just more efficiently, and moving away from the traditional systems that we've known for many years. Yeah, technology is definitely introducing a lot of evolution in the industry, and with that comes a lot of compliance burdens and regulatory scrutiny as well. So it's a very exciting time to be in the financial services right now, and it's exciting to see what the future holds.
So I have a question. I don't know if you'll be able to answer it, but let's
Yeah.
say an organization gets into trouble and now they have to maybe release a statement. So who do they approach first? Do they approach the PR department or the legal team?
So I would say it needs to be a joint meeting, right? Because
Yeah.
from depending on what kind of a problem that this organization is facing, there are obviously considerations to be had from a legal perspective. And similarly so, from a reputation management perspective, you would need public relations experts to weigh in on the statement that is going to be released. Again, none of the things that we do or businesses do are done in isolation. It's usually a joint effort because there are a lot of considerations often at play at the same time. So, for your example, I would recommend that it actually is a joint meeting and that the statement is put together with the input of legal and with the input of public relations at the same time so that the result that comes out of that has considered both implications.
Yeah, that's a wonderful answer. A very good one. What would you say to young lawyers or aspiring attorneys who want to work in financial services, regulatory law, or governance?
I would say give it a chance. If you really want to do it, you need to commit to doing it. As I said, it as a young professional, you often don't have a very clear picture of what it is that you want to do. So if you want to explore financial services, regulatory, or governance, then make sure that you commit. As with anything else that you do, you need to give it your 100% commitment so that if it doesn't work out, you don't leave the situation wondering what would have happened had you applied yourself 100%. So commit if you want to do it, then commit 100% and also understand that in order to be successful, there is a cost to pay. And that cost differs from person to person, but the common thing is that success involves hard work. So you need to commit and then you need to work hard in order for you to become successful in whatever it is that you do. So I would say those two things. Make sure that you make the commitment and you commit 100%. And on top of that, that you apply yourself and you work hard and then you will see amazing results.
Looking back, what kind of legal profession will will thrive in the next decade? Do you think will thrive in the next decade?
Yeah, that's a difficult one to make predictions, but I would say a career that survives time is a career that adapts to change. The world is constantly evolving. What is important now might not be important in 10 years' time as far as, being legal counsel is concerned. So I would say a career that would survive is a career that is adaptable. And I spoke about adaptability earlier again, so I emphasize that it's a person who evolves and moves with the time. You upskill or you pivot to make yourself relevant for the context that is applicable at the time.
Before we close off, I was doing the introduction, I wasn't sure if I said your surname correct. Is it Kheswa? Am I saying correctly?
It
Kheswa.
it's Kheswa.
Oh, Kheswa.
Yes, Kheswa.
I thought maybe I'm butchering your
Yeah,
surname.
yeah.
If I did, apologies.
No, it's all right. Thank you for correcting it.
Um, Sboniso, I want to take this moment to say thank you for taking the time to share a little bit about your journey and to give us in your work. I don't know if maybe any closing remarks you want to give to the.
Nothing, just to say thank you for extending the invite. I had a lot of fun chatting about my career and my journey. And I don't know if it caught it in the last recording, but you had a question there about any words for young practitioners or, lawyers. And what I can say is just, if you want to do this, make sure that you commit 100% and also understand that success requires hard work. So also be prepared to, in addition to committing yourself, be prepared to work hard because that's where the most beautiful results come about.
Us.